Hereby give notice that the total number of votes given for each candidate at the election was as follows. Helen Mary Anscombe, 34. Jitendra June Limbarzois, 33. Anthony Neil Wedgwood Benn, 24,000.
On the 1st of March 1984, the Labour Party won a now famous victory in the Chesterfield by-election. And like any other such victory, it was the result of a lot of hard work by party members and workers. Three fields of activity dominated the Labour campaign. Firstly, there was the doorstep and street campaign involving canvassers and the candidate. Secondly, there was the workplace campaign, organised by trade unions for a Labour victory. And finally, there was the media campaign, built on the expertise of Walworth Road's own press officers. Election agent Peter Coleman explains how it was organised.
We have a strategy meeting each morning where we discuss what has happened the previous day, what's going to happen today, what's going to happen in the rest of the campaign. The strategy committee is made up of the press officer, local people, myself, candidate's aide, and the person who's looking after the candidate's programme. I've been in quite a lot of by-elections, and certainly this one was a great challenge. The Chesterfield Constituency Party is a well-organised party in that it's got 18 wards, of which 14 branch organisations are in existence and functioning on a monthly basis. And the membership is above average for the East Midlands constituencies. Initially, we needed to set up the election machine and to look at its failures and its strengths. But in addition to that, we had to have another timetable, which then outlined the programme that we needed for getting the printing on time, everything running into the campaign at the right period. It's no good having an election address a week late or the wrong size for the envelopes. We had a flood of new members when the by-election was announced, and they had to be catered for. And of course, since the campaign started, we had to have an organisation that was capable of identifying our support, which we've been doing during the campaign.
Where's the canvas car that's just come back on the phase of this?
That's Middlecroft Road, that's just come back.
There are one or two doubtfuls, but if we can get a Member of Parliament...
Well, why are some of them doubtful? Does it say on the remarks column?
Mrs. Norton, she won't say why, and I think a lot of them, have been frightened by the press and the media about Tony Benn himself, the personality rather than anything else, rather than the policies. The lady in the House has got more sense than the others. She's voting Labour, and the other two are doubtful. But certainly, we having one in the family votes Labour, we can...
I think we should make that point to canvassers as well. I mean, people normally assume that everybody in a household will
vote
whoever answers the door.
Right, yeah. Rather than asking one individual for the whole family, we've got to try and contact everybody who lives in the household. But Middlecroft Road, if you can mark that off on the progress chart, that's another street done, yeah.
Okay.
We felt that we needed a women's canvass team to concentrate more on the housewives and go to see them in the daytime, and we did decide that we would look at the canvass cards and identify the housewives who were doubtful, who couldn't make their mind up how they wanted to vote, and we felt as women we could talk to them on what mattered to them on a local level, basic things that mattered to them, and it seems to have been quite successful up to now, we're getting through to them. Well, one interview that I did, yes, there was a son, there was a lady and a son there, and he was unemployed. the lady herself was a pensioner, and she was concerned about, I don't think she was particularly well off on the pension, and she was concerned about the tax with the pension and more money being put into the social services to help old people. And yes, they were very concerned about those two particular issues.
Well, as I've previously said...
What can you do on £34 a week?
Not much, but hopefully we could, you know, we are looking at pensioners' increases.
I mean, if you've got a son at home, you're penalised. I've got my mother, she's 81, living with me, and you're penalised again.
Yes, it's a very big thing.
I mean, they take at least £5 off your rent and rebate for him, and then another £5 for my mother. So,
of course, with her being over 80, she gets the marvellous sum of 25 pence.
Oh yes, oh, and they think they're giving you the world,
that's
don't
right,
they?
love.
And I mean,
The decision of the campaign committee was that we've got to get Tony across to as many people in Chesterfield during the 3 or 4 weeks of the campaign as possible. I think as far as the people of Chesterfield are concerned, the less time that Tony spends with the writing press from Fleet Street, the more time he can spend with electors in Chesterfield.
What is your policies apart from pit closures?
Well, we've got to put money into the mining industry. I mean, take South Wales that he represents. They're killing the industry. In Derbyshire, they're killing the industry. And we've got to invest in the pits, develop the market, and see we do it that way.
Our pit is due to close in 10 years.
Which one is that?
Island Colliery.
Yes.
Would the Labour carry on the Tory policies of closing the mines, same as they did under Mr Wilson?
No, Mr McGregor would be the first one who'd get his cards, I tell you that, because he's damaging the industry.
That's right. The thing that would just...
I'm a face worker. I've been on the face for, 16 years. We've got to have security, haven't you? That's the main thing round here. What with pit closures, unemployment. That's the main issues. Yeah. You know, we're just reviewing mines every 5 years. It could be as Ireland will probably come next. I'm wondering what Labour are going to do if they ever get back in power, because under Lord Robins, when he was chairman of the coal board, they started closing pits then. And I'm wondering if this is going to carry on with the Labour if they get into power in the future.
The wards. Have we had any chance of analysing the canvass returns over the weekend? Or?
Yeah, the doubtfuls are reducing, obviously, because we're now canvassing doubtfuls and outs. Yes. So we're now on our second canvass in the main, and outs, doubtfuls are being called back on. And the feeling of that is that it's shifting and it's coming our way. They're hardening up.
Right, okay. Trade unions?
We have the NHS campaign this week, so therefore the National Health Service unions are with us all the week. And if you know, well, you see on your programme that they're with us really for the whole of the week, building up to Friday night and Saturday during the day. And we, in the programmes, we should get through all of the hospitals to meet the staff that are going to be on at the time. So that's taken care of most of, I think, all of the trade unions.
Well, if you look at the history of the Labour Party, its very roots were formed in trade unionism, and I think it's natural to try to get back to those roots. There has been a tendency to move away from it. It's ironic that since 1979 this particular government has put through the statute books more anti-union legislation and anti-working class legislation than any government, certainly since before the war. Basically, we're liaising with the campaign committee and organising workplace meetings, for the candidate to meet as many people as he can, of whatever political persuasion they are, so that he can get his message across and they can make their minds up. By the time the election takes place, in terms of major employers in the town, there won't be one single employer that hasn't been visited in one way or another.
We're bringing working people, and you as a working actor, very well known to you, bringing them to Chesterfield to tell people of their experience, and at the meetings we're hearing of the experiences of the people in this town. Now, we've got a lot of media people, and they've come up from London. Some of them have never been to Chesterfield before, and some of them will never come back again after next Thursday. And there's been
CI stands for Tube Investments. The particular operation that they do here is making cylinders. The workforce has declined, as most other workforces in manufacturing industry, because of the economic circumstances that we find ourselves in. There's an active Joint Shop Stewards Committee who have been instrumental in arranging and organising and publicising the Factory Gate meeting today. It is interesting to note that there has been a large number of people, trade unionists, who have come forward and joined the Labour Party within this campaign. And they're here to stay. I do believe that. And I believe that TULV does have a role to ensure that that does happen. That, you know, come March the 2nd, TULV doesn't pack its bags up and go away. Because that is not what it's all about.
We've got a lot of way to go yet.
I'll tell you
we
what,
need a change in atmosphere altogether.
Well, I mean, until people feel it can be done, they're not going to put the effort in. It's a chicken and an egg situation. If people think it's hopeless, they don't try, so it remains hopeless. If they say we want something different and prepared to work at it, then the atmosphere changes. Because work is the basis of confidence. I don't mean, you know, backbreaking industrial work, but I mean actually working on our own
you've
future.
Got to give them incentive.
That's right. And the incentive is some idea of what it could be like if we tried. By the way, I should tell you that these people are friendly.
Oh,
but I'm going round. It's a funny position.
And they can't put them in the hospitals because they won't staff them. And there are 3,000 doctors on the dole. Now what sense is it to have trained people and a huge demand for medical treatment and not employ them to meet medical needs? Then I'll tell you another issue. There are a lot of older people who've given their lives, may have served in 2 world wars, may have suffered unemployment in the 1930s, and they're finding it very hard to manage. There's a long waiting list for old people's flats, and yet, you know, we've got 250,000 or more building workers at work. There are enough bricks on the ground now already to build a new town the size of Derby. Why don't we employ building workers?
This is the News at 1 from ITN with Leonard Parkin.
Trifling little piece in the Express, which doesn't matter. The Guardian photograph of Max Payne, no clear reason why they used it, because the copy is all about the toy. The Sheffield Telegraph piece about Bourne's press conference, which appeared to be a bit of a damp scoop. His political cliches. We had these photographs of Tony, quotes, you know, could you possibly... Sorry?
2 blank posters on it.
I don't know. Our Sun has a leader entitled The Sick Voice of Bennism, with a cartoon of Maggie in the punk wig, which is not in line with the other cartoons, which have you in the punk wig, Mr. Benn. Leader in the Mirror on Joan Maynard, which I hope by the end of the day would have died out as an issue. The Mail, another cartoon. Well, I get up crack of dawn and go through the papers and mark them up. I don't cut them because I think it's important people see where the piece is on the page and what it's competing with in terms of the rest of the news. And I do a very brief outline of that. In terms of what I thought the candidate could expect, it was clearly going to be a blockbuster in terms of media coverage. It was clearly going to be the biggest zoo this side of the 1945 general election in terms of its importance to all parties. It was going to have massive coverage, not just within Britain, but from journalists all over the world, and that has indeed turned out to be the case. We had a strategy worked out before it started, which was worked out obviously with the candidate and with the agent, and we very early decided that, and this was in conjunction with some private polling the party had done before Christmas, which is long before Mr. Benn came on the scene. The people of Chesterfield knew that there was to be a by-election, and they understood why. Then when Mr. Benn was selected, I don't think you needed to poll to find out that the name would be reasonably familiar. We'd have no problems establishing that. The only thing you then had to get across is the date. Those are the 3 functions from my point of view of the early morning ritual press conference. 2 of them weren't necessary, and the 3rd would be relatively easy. So we scrubbed the early morning press conference and we went for good picture and radio headlines and good photographic opportunities.
We're meeting people, and what I find is so interesting is that the people in the town are setting the agenda, and it's not being set by the Sun and the Mail and the Express.
They would like probably to have had a cosy little press conference in the Portland Hotel at 10 o'clock every morning where they could have their coffee and write their stories, and the day would be free. And we've said, no, if you want to meet us, we'll be at the hospital today, we'll be at the factory gate somewhere else, we'll be in the town hall. And they've actually had to come and follow us to where we were. And I have found that my role has been transformed. They have become politicians trying to run the campaign. In one sense, I've become a journalist, and when I go to these meetings, I bring the people forward, or they come forward, and the cameras are there, and I say, tell us what it's like in the hospital. And the media have to listen to me interviewing, but interviewing in a way designed to draw out what they want, so what they say can get straight through to the media. Now, of course, very little of that's happened, but it's been a very interesting tryout and for what needs to happen, which is that the media cover what is happening, what is said, what it's about. And then I could revert perhaps more to being the teacher, but at the moment I've been the journalist in this election. And of course, since that is my professional occupation, I've enjoyed it. But it isn't absolutely right that it should be on that basis.
What are you, Mr. Pearson?
I'm a caseworker.
Caseworker. Let me ask your age. How old are you?
45.
You're 45.
30 years in the industry.
Yes. And what were you asking? I mean, what did you...
I wanted to know if we guaranteed a job under this Labour government.
Oh, I see.
If they get in again.
Yes, I see.
Mr. Who?
What I perhaps rather unkindly call the Rat Pack, which is the very sharp end of the writing press, has found it very difficult to get its act together in terms of setting the elephant traps and harassing first thing in the morning and getting the story running on a sort of set of tram lines where really you can't get off those tram lines because you're trying to run away from them all the time. And they haven't done that, and it's been very interesting that not only have the stories been fairly all over the place. I mean, there have been different stories in different newspapers, whereas normally by now you've got a fairly identical few what a scorcher type headline in everything. We haven't got that, and equally we haven't got the same rat pack. An awful lot of them have pulled out because they got bored.
I mean, I just jotted through a swing to the Tories, Joan Maynard, Peter Tatchell, vegetarianism, a punk wig, and that was really their coverage. I mean, they are all over the shop
Well,
at the
apart
moment.
from Barry, yeah.
They must be, well, Barry did a little bit about GCHQ, that was the only serious story.
Yeah. No, they're
but I mean, they
confused.
really are all over the shop. Mind you, I'm not sure it's a bad thing.
We decided that there had to be major themes that we would bring in at different stages of the campaign. There's nothing new, it's always been done, it's done by any good organiser. We started off with the youth unemployment theme, developing that into unemployment, and I think the opinion polling that's been done has proved that the Labour Party's policy on that has got across, in that it's become one of the major issues of the campaign.
How have you seen that battle of agendas going?
Well, one of our problems in the campaign has been that we're the only people who are actually talking about policies most of the time. That our opponents have been talking about personalities, they've been talking about dogs fouling footpaths. And if their candidates had been more able, then they might have been able to have developed some of the dirty tricks that they've been trying.
David, you've been here before, you're here again.
Yes, well, I'd just like to say something about the presence of the militant tendency here over the weekend. There have been large numbers of people, and as most of you will know, the word has gone out now from militant and the other broad left organisations to pour in to support Tony Benn. And we identify them because some of them are from Liverpool and are well known to me as being members of militant.
Were you here over the weekend?
I've been here this morning, and indeed my colleagues have been here over the weekend.
Well, doesn't the weekend normally run Saturday to Sunday, even in Chesterfield?
You did say you personally identified people from Liverpool.
Yes, I've seen people from Liverpool here over the weekend.
So you were here over the weekend?
Last night when I was here, I saw people from Liverpool. Yes, I did.
I think we haven't done as well as what we hoped we were going to do when we set out, but I think we have been now seen by the electors as probably the only party that's really talking about the things which will affect their lives in the next few years under this Tory government.
Should be okay till about 10 o'clock. I just quickly wanted to go through the system that will actually operate on the day. As I say, I will go through it again next Wednesday night. It's called the Reading system. I don't think you've actually used it in the past. It's called Reading, just a piece of historical information for those who are interested. It's called Reading, and other people refer to it as Mikado. The reason it's got those two names is that Ian Mikado, who used to be on the national executive of the party, was Labour candidate in Reading and devised a system during that election, which I think was held in the early 50s. What it consists of are these carbonated sheets, and there are 3 sheets in all and card at the back. The idea of it, as everybody appreciates over the last 3 or 4 weeks, the amount of canvassing we've been doing. The information of all the Labour promises that we collect, that's all the promises that we got in the first few days of the first few weeks of the campaign, plus all those doubtfuls which we've managed to convince to vote Labour. We put them down on these cards. We'll start writing up round about next Monday or Tuesday, when we've probably finished the vast bulk of canvassing, or as much of it as we're likely to get done. We put every Labour promise on here. We'll completely forget about the doubtfuls we can't convince, the Tory promises and the Liberal promises. All we want to concentrate on polling day are those people who've said that they would vote Labour. There's 1 sheet for each street throughout the area, and we put the name of the person there, we put what their poll number is, and we put the number of the house. What happens then is, on polling day, when a man in the polling station, that someone, and I think you've done this in the past, you have number checkers on there. The number that is given then comes back in books of 25 and sheets of 25. That information, if a number comes in and it corresponds with a number on this sheet, we then put a line through it. That, as far as we know, is someone who promised to vote Labour during this campaign, has been down at the polling station, has voted, and as far as we can operate. We just assume that that person has been good to the word and voted Labour. So during the day, hopefully, the scores will go through here, and we'll be able to see at a glance how certain areas are voting and how the Labour vote is holding up. Then during the day, we'll start the knock-up, and that's basically tearing the top sheet off, remembering that there are another 3 carbonated sheets on the bottom. So the person who goes out to knock-up will have a list in front of them of every Labour promise who hasn't voted in the election, and that's obviously very handy information to have. People will then go around to whatever street it is, knock on the door and ask people to say, I'm calling on behalf of the Labour Party, you did promise to vote Labour during the election, will you be going down to the polling station, would you like a car or whatever.
Got your numbers? Hello, how are you? 1499.
1501.
1501, Jenny, you can't tell it true if it is that number.
1498, man.
1498, yep.
1500.
1500.
I am now.
Yep. That would take 2.
Or
don't just content yourself with waiting till March the 1st and coming out and voting, essential though it is. I ask you to do something else. Commit yourself to the Labour Party. Commit yourself to activity in the Labour movement. Come and work with us in the knowledge that in this democracy that still can be forward to secure advantage, to gain new advances. From now on, make your commitment. Join us, work with us, teach us, come alongside us. Convince your fellow citizens. You will find it an activity that is rewarding because it is the energy of democracy. It's the way we get things done.
Anthony Neil Wedgwood Benn, 24,000.
The interesting thing is that if I were abstracted now, at the very moment when I've been elected completely from the scene, 99.999%, if not more, of what had happened, he'll still be there. And you can't put your faith in people, individuals. You ask them to represent you, you hold them accountable, you replace them if you don't like them, you argue with them, you educate them, you forgive them if they make mistakes, because the party's very generous. But what you want is somebody there with that very limited function of sitting in the House of Commons and writing to government departments with a crested paper which helps them get supplies. But 99.999% is what's happened here. You can feel it, you can sense it. The party is encouraged, excited, the people came in from the outside and were enthused by what they saw. Will go back with the message, if they can do it in Chesterfield, we can do it in Wigan, we can do it in Llanelli, we can do it in Honiton, we can do it in Dundee or whatever. And so a process began, and out of that process will come social change. And the people are utterly expendable. I really believe this. I know people think I'm kidding, but it's not so. I really believe that the people who happen to be in representative positions at any one moment are virtually expendable. Their only possible long-term value is as teachers. So I think that we have witnessed today the beginning of a campaign, because it is a new start in a very real way, certainly in Chesterfield, maybe more widely. We've begun something which will roll and echo and give confidence and hope, will happen elsewhere, and will culminate in the dismissal of the government under which we now suffer, and will be followed by a Labour Party or a Labour government which will have beneath it a seething, bubbling, anxious, determined, not anxious, but determined movement. And of course a Labour government without that would not be able to win. A Labour government with it will be able to win, and if you have it even without a Labour government, things will have to change. So actually the thing starts at the bottom, comes through the election, goes back to the bottom in terms, when I say bottom, I'm talking about grassroots, and it is a circularity of which the moment of election is only a very minor part.
The first thing that someone said was, God, I'm only sorry it's all over. And someone else said, but it isn't. We're just beginning. And we're just beginning, thank God. we can finally get something rolling in Chesterfield. And who knows, one of our IT might give Tony Benn a run for his money. Don't know.